maybe, just maybe, the Browns have done something right. Let's not get carried away here. Looking good in camp in June is one thing. Looking good in an NFL game is quite another. Maybe he was that guy all along. It's an interesting thought. Is he going to be their week one starter? Toughen up a little bit, kids. This is the NFL. Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, that's right. It's been a minute since we've thought about Shedeur on this program, but of course back in April, it was all that everybody was talking about as we watched him fall all the way down teams' draft boards from being a potential number 2 pick in the draft at one point, maybe a potential number 1 overall if we go back far enough. But even after Cam Ward became the Titans' choice, and we all knew that that's what they were going to do with the number 1 pick, we certainly thought that Shedeur Sanders was going to go probably in the top 10, and of course, certainly he was going to go somewhere in the first round, except he did not, slipping all the way to the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th round. Finally, the Cleveland Browns pulled the trigger on Shedeur Sanders, ending the drama of the thought that maybe this kid wasn't even going to get drafted at all. And it would have to be the greatest free fall in NFL draft history to go from being a projected top 5 pick at one point to not being drafted at all. And even being drafted in the 5th round, it still was astonishing. And we were all asking the questions, what the hell did this kid do wrong that teams got so put off with him that they weren't even willing to draft him in the 2nd or the 3rd round? What could he have done to fall all the way from being a blue chip stock to being somebody that teams were passing on, even when there was potentially great value there? Well, what we're hearing now is that Shedeur is looking good in camp. Now, look, I know it's June, and let's not get carried away here. Looking good in camp in June is one thing. Looking good in an NFL game is quite another. But the early returns, if you believe the word that is trickling in out of Cleveland, is that Shedeur is looking more like a 1st-round pick and less like a 5th-round pick. And Colin Cowherd thinks that, well, maybe, just maybe, the Browns have done something right.
Story time, Uncle Colin. So there were these 2 scientists back in like the 60s, and they were trying to create this super strong adhesive, but even though they're scientists and smart guys, they ended up creating a much weaker adhesive that was very removable, and that became Post-it notes. They stumbled into wild success, and I think that's what the Cleveland Browns have done. They didn't want to draft Shedeur Sanders, and he's crushing it. He's their best quarterback in camp. Sometimes you stumble into success. It's not a straight line. It's not linear. Brady with the Patriots, Brock Purdy to the Niners, Kurt Warner to the Rams. It's not always a straight line.
It's an interesting thought. And it's true. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. The 49ers stumbled in to their franchise quarterback that they're paying, what, $50 million a year now? You think that they thought that they were getting a franchise cornerstone when they grabbed Brock Purdy with the last pick of the draft? Of course they didn't. Do you think that the New England Patriots knew what they had in Tom Brady when they drafted him in the 6th round? Well, of course they didn't. Because if you thought he was going to be the greatest quarterback to ever pick up a football, you sure as hell wouldn't have passed on him in the 4th, the 5th, the 3rd, the 2nd, or even the 1st, right? Everybody would have traded up to get the number 1 pick in the draft if they knew that Tom Brady was going to be Tom Brady. Joe Montana going in the 3rd round to the 49ers back in the late 70s, 1980, whenever it was that he got drafted. It's pretty wild when you really think about it. Pretty wild that sometimes the greatest players ascend to their status from humble beginnings. The thing about Shedeur, though, that makes him a little bit different than Montana or Brady or some other names that we might be able to think of, Purdy among them, is that nobody ever thought of those guys as being top of the 1st round talents. That was never discussed. Nobody mentioned Joe Montana as a 1st round pick. Nobody mentioned Tom Brady. Nobody mentioned Brock Purdy. Hell, a lot of people didn't know who the hell Brock Purdy even was. And Tom Brady coming out of Michigan, as crazy as it is to think now, it wasn't that big of a deal. at the time. But Shedeur was. And then we watched it do a 180. Suddenly, he's not desirable. That's why we got so curious about it is how do you go from being that guy to not being that guy? Turns out maybe he was that guy all along. If you believe what we're hearing out of Cleveland, is he going to be their week 1 starter? They took Dylan Gabriel from Oregon 2 rounds before they took Shedeur Sanders. All right, they grabbed a quarterback 2 rounds before this guy. The team that took him, 31 other teams didn't touch him until the Browns took him, but the Browns only did it after they'd already grabbed another quarterback 2 rounds before Shedeur. They've got Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is never going to see the field again in a Browns uniform. He's technically still a Brown. And, of course, Dylan Gabriel, as I mentioned. Well, who's going to be the guy to beat out here? It's probably Joe Flacco, quite honestly. And let's listen to Joe Flacco, who, honestly, sometimes you got to lean on the veteran for perspective. We lose a lot of things as we get older. Get a little slower, get a little sorer. It's a little tougher to bounce back. If you get injured, sometimes you get injured and you don't even know why you got injured. But one thing you do get is you understand how life works. You understand how the business that you're a part of works. And Joe Flacco has that wisdom. Let's listen to the Super Bowl winning veteran.
Even when it got easier in 2011, I think, everybody that was playing at that point had been through 2-a-days at some point in their life. Guys that come in the NFL now have never done it. They've never done it. We're out there for an hour and 15 minutes and guys think it's hard. Our OTAs were over 2 hours for sure.
2-a-days. Look, an hour and 15 minutes. There's a lot of people clocking in and they're working longer days than that. And it's why I don't have a lot of sympathy for load management when we hear about it in the NBA or wherever else. You play 82 times a year and we're asking you to work for 35 minutes, 82 times a year, and you can't do it. That sounds like the sweetest gig that you could possibly ever hope for. You got to take time off. So yeah, Joe Flacco, I hear you. Toughen up a little bit, kids. This is the NFL. Speaking of toughening up, hey, listen. I love this one. I love this one so much. It's so satisfying. Rioting going on in California. It's funny, right? January 6th was an insurrection, but what you see going on in California, of course, we're back to quote unquote, mostly peaceful protest where people are just having fun watching cars that are on fire and whatever. But here's one right here from the Fuck Around and Find Out files. And you want to talk about a heroic citizen. I want you to take a look at this. Look at this guy here. Oh, he's going to throw shit at a cop? Well, guess what? You just got jacked up, son. You're going into the concussion protocol now. And the guy who does it, just a goddamn great American citizen right there. Citizen's arrest is what is happening right here. You assault the police officer, textbook form right there. Let's look at it again. Let's just run it on a loop for about the next 10 minutes.
He got depleted. That's getting depleted.
He got absolutely blown up. Look at that. Bam. Take that for law and order and justice. One
Great
last
form.
time. Fuck around. Welcome to Find Outville. Population U, asshole. Thanks to that guy. Do we know the name of the guy who made that tackle? We ought to get him on this program.
No, we don't know either name. We don't know either name, but take that, asshole.
He should be famous right now. It's the kind of thing I've walked around my entire life fantasizing about having an opportunity to jump in and do something heroic like that. So this bud's for you, street tackle guy. Take that, asshole.
Rugby tackle or American form, Ricky? What do you got? Some people were debating. He did one shoulder and the opposite foot, which is typically a rugby tackle as opposed to an American tackle. Bro, what do you got? Rugby player or football player? What do you think?
I don't know anything about rugby, but that looked like a pretty good middle linebacker play to me. I don't think that there are any football coaches out there that would turn down that guy on their roster. So I'm going to call it good old-fashioned American football on the streets. Take that, man. Ice. The controversy out there. Speaking of ice, by the way, look who just reported as tackle eligible. This guy right here. Burl fucking Ives. I've tweeted before. I can barely remember. He actually does look like Burl Ives. I've tweeted before that I can't remember what Burl Ives looks like, so I just imagine him as this snowman. But I actually can remember Burl Ives, and that's about accurate. That is Burl Ives with just a little more frost right there. If you're enjoying this shit, sign up for Ricky Cobb's Rewind, won't you? It's our new bi-weekly newsletter, and it's so simple. All you got to do is head over to outkick.com/newsletters. And it's right there. Take whatever janky email address you use for such purposes. Sign up. It's absolutely free. You can unsubscribe anytime, but only a goddamn fool would do that because we're having too much fun over there. We just dropped the second edition this Thursday. I had way too much fun putting it together, answering your question, captioning a viewer's childhood photo and stuff like that. So join us. Get in on the party with Ricky Cobb's Rewind. That is outkick.com/newsletters. And you can make that happen for yourself for fucking free. They say the best things in life are free. And the best things in life at this point, a lot of people are saying sex and Ricky Cobb's Rewind. They may be the two best things in life that are actually free right now in this expensive world that we live in. I can't help you with your sex life, unfortunately. Unless you have a margarita mailbag question, in which case maybe I could give you some sexual counsel. So see, maybe you could kill two birds with one stone.
God.
Wait, sex is free?
Speaking.
Yeah, wait, what since when? When?
What?
It's free?
What? It's free to get advice on your sex life.
No, you said sex is free.
I mean, well, sex is free if you know how to get women. I mean, I guess if you're an incel and you have to pay for it. All the sex, believe it or not, all the sex that I've had in my life, it's been free. All you got to do is find somebody that's willing to give you a yes. I mean, I realize that's not always easy for us guys, including myself. But, it does happen. Angel Reese. I don't know. Where's the segue? Speaking of sex and free, no, I don't know. Let's go to Angel Reese here because this is funny. This is just a clever comment that somebody made on social media. One of those where you see it and you think, I kind of wish that I had done that. I don't think that very often when I read posts, but Angel Reese retweeting her words from last October saying they hate you online but love you in person, saying exactly to that. And Shabuzi shows up and says she rebounded her own tweet. I don't know. Who
now I
retweets
get it.
themselves?
Now I get it. She retweeted herself.
Yeah. She retweeted herself, Tim. And agreed with herself. It's like the people that like their own post on Facebook. There's a guy I follow on Facebook, somebody that I know, and he'll put out a Facebook post and then he'll always like it. And I feel like you probably wouldn't have posted it if you didn't like it. I don't need you clicking the like button to know that you like your own tweets. I feel like I have solidified my position on Twitter X with a little something that I call why not over there, but on this show, we tend to call it America's Poll of the Day, and let's go to it now. It's Super 70 Sports on X, where the eagle flies high and then buzzes your dome on Fridays with the champions from Monday through Thursday. We call it Championship Friday, and here's your reminder of the good things that triumph during the first 4 days of this work week. They are the Winter Olympics, go-karts, the always tasty and refreshing DQ Blizzard, and Charlie's Angels. So 4 pretty solid things here. This looks like a relatively even poll for a Championship Friday. I don't see anything standing out that looks like it's going to threaten to get 50%, as we have seen happen a couple of times. Ronnie, break it down for me, as only you can.
So, you always tell people, use whatever criteria you want to use when making your decision. So today, my criteria is going to be, what can I eliminate and be okay with the most? And so I'm going to eliminate Charlie's Angels, because I shared yesterday that I had never seen it. DQ Blizzards, I love DQ Blizzards. Go-karts, I've done once or twice. But the one that I really don't want to do without is Winter Olympics, because I thoroughly enjoy every 4 years getting to watch the Winter Olympics. It's a lot of times it's in a place that I'm not super familiar with, and so you get to learn about a new place. Well, Lillehammer in Norway, it was in Sarajevo and Yugoslavia one time. I mean, it's just
Rod, you want to drop some Lillehammer and Sarajevo nuggets that you picked up from watching the Winter Olympics?
So what's interesting is in Lillehammer. When you turn 14 and I don't know, Ricky. I was just trying to impress people that I knew where some of the Olympics were.
You're an intellectual, yes.
Yeah. So I'm going Winter Olympics. I got a feeling Blizzard's going to win, but I'm going Olympics. What about you?
Well, as I look at it, Winter Olympics, I prefer the Summer Olympics to the Winter Olympics. So if I was going to, have to lose an Olympics, it would be the Winter Olympics that would go for me. Although I do enjoy it, the favorite events, I think you talked about it, the ski jump
luge
is always
bobsled,
great.
Yeah.
Luge is great. I enjoy the bobsled. I usually end up sort of taking on something of a mild interest in the figure skating. I will have to admit.
Oh, I can't stand figure skating. Oh, it's
I can't
awful.
stand it either, but there's a part of me, the women's figure skating. All the guys look like Will Arnett, and they're out there in their, Elvis
Blades
jumpsuits and whatever.
Blades of Glory.
Yeah, but the women's figure skating, particularly, there's something beautiful about it. It's artistic. Especially if there's an American that's in the mix. I remember Michelle Kwan, and of course, we all remember Nancy Kerrigan. Go-karts, as I said, Peggy Fleming, Dorothy Hamill.
The Dorothy Hamill haircut? The Dorothy Hamill haircut?
Yeah, Katharina Witt was a big deal back in the days for West Germany was it at the time? Mm-hmm. Go-karts, as I said, look, man, I was a go-kart enthusiast when I was a kid. DQ Blizzards are great. Charlie's Angels, with all respect for how much content I'm able to mine from it, I don't really have any desire to sit down and watch an episode. So for me, it comes down probably, you know what? End of the day, God, it's tough, Ron. Somebody said that Dairy Queen is the Miller Lite of ice cream, which I kind of get that. But,
great,
little leaguers everywhere... Little leaguers everywhere will agree that Dairy Queen's awesome. At the end of the day, for me, I'm going to ride with Winter Olympics too. And I'm surprised because I didn't think, as you were saying that, I was thinking that I was going to go another direction. Let's bring in the man who once christened his turtle Reginald Martinez Munson to get his thoughts on this matter. My fellow Reggie Jackson enthusiast, producer Tim, and
Comrade Ron,
may be tipping his hand here.
Comrade, you didn't mention Sochi.
I didn't. The motherland.
And I think was Sochi both? What was the recent games that did both summer and winter? Was it Sochi?
Beijing. Didn't Beijing do winter and summer in the last 15, 20 years? I think it's Beijing.
Guys, can we please do a Charlie's Angels? I'm looking at that. That's the real one behind you. So in the middle, what do I need to do? I need to go this way, kind of turn. All right, I'm middle guy.
It's opposite on the
So,
Zoom.
Yeah, can we
Okay,
get back to
yeah, there we go.
Can we get back to this? Okay, Ron's didn't. Now, Tim, pop back up. Give us a little, like, you're ready. You're like in a karate. You got to go the other way. You're like in a karate
There we
posture.
go.
I don't think you have a firearm, Tim. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. Look at that. Gary's Angels is what we're going to call ourselves.
Good Lord.
We get an assignment from Gary Schreier before every program to try to not suck.
Winter Olympics, Nagano. I certainly remember the flying tomato, right, when he was doing his thing on snowboards. I'm with you on the ice skating, hockey, of course. I would say Winter Olympics a second for me. We're going to do an electronic go-kart get-together. I think that's a team-building event that we'll have to figure out the next time the three of us and Jared are all in the same place. DQ Blizzard, never, ever. Although I think you're going to see a surprise today. Charlie's Angels gets my vote there, Mr. Cobb.
All right. And one thing I'm going to say, Lake Placid, my first Winter Olympics that I remember was 1980.
Yep.
I was 8.
You're 8? Yeah.
1976 was a little soon for me. 76 was Montreal was the summer. Where were the Winter Olympics at in 76? Anybody remember?
Okay, so
it wasn't Munich,
80 was Lake Placid.
No.
That was the Summer Olympics in 72. I don't remember.
Jared's going to tell us in a second. Jared's going to tell us in a second.
Lake Placid is the one I remember.
Austria. It was in Innsbruck.
Oh, Innsbruck. Okay. I've actually been to Innsbruck. I actually have seen the ski jump there in Innsbruck.
Well,
world travel.
So I remember Eric Heiden falling down, and
Eric Heiden was also a cyclist.
Wait, I'm seeing Montreal in 76. This program's going off
Montreal
the rails.
was Summer Olympics because that's where Sugar Ray Leonard fought.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's where Bruce Jenner.
And so 78 would have been Winter Olympics.
Gold. By the way, the 76 Summer Olympics, the first Olympics to feature AstroTurf. We may ask Mr. AstroTurf, Jim Savoca, about that a little bit later on. Yeah, first AstroTurf Olympics. Well, let's light this candle. Let's fire it and see what the public has to say. At the end of the day, we're just 3 guys. This is always in the hands of you, Super 70s Sports Nation, Ricky Cobb Show Nation, and
pretty close.
Pretty competitive. The Blizzard just a little too powerful. My audience's desire for the pleasures of things that taste good and feel good is going to be the difference maker here. Looks like it's almost effectively a 3-way tie for second place right now, guys.
Yeah,
that's rare.
Yeah, it is very rare.
Yeah, we don't see that very often. Look, I mean, I think the DQ Blizzard is the only one I guess you could avail yourselves of go-karts or Charlie's Angels whenever you wanted to, but the DQ Blizzard is the one that probably plays the most frequent role in the greatest number of people's lives. So maybe that's the reason that they went in that direction. Here's something that you don't want to play a role in your life, probably. There it is.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
No,
I feel like Tim is
Colin
stealing that one.
No, hey, you know what? Tim. We need Colin to
making
pull
love to the camera.
Yeah, we need Colin to pull us out, our backgrounds out, and then move me and Tim closer to it and make an actual visual.
See, this is what Colin gets. He drops a couple of good things on us, and now you're requesting all kinds of super fucking complicated shit.
Oh, that's not complicated. He'll do that in 5 seconds.
Well, it's easy for you to say it's not complicated.
Colin's that good. No, Colin's that good. I know it.
Well, I'm not saying that I lack faith in Colin. I'm just saying you're dumping extra work on him.
And now a man whose living room carpet is made out of AstroTurf, Ricky Cobb.
Yeah, that's right. My living room carpet is made out of AstroTurf. I've been an AstroTurf fan going all the way back to when I was a kid, going to Riverfront Stadium every summer, watching the Cincinnati Reds, and captivated by that brilliant surface that they had there. And so It is quite an honor and a pleasure to welcome my guest to the program today. He is the National Sales Manager for Astroturf. He's been with them for, I believe, over 3 decades. I speak of the man that they call Mr. Astroturf. Jim Savoca joins the show. Jim, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. It's actually been 47 years of Astroturf.
Wow.
I know.
47 years of Astroturf. You look much too young to have that kind of tenure.
Let me take this
in the business.
I'll take this hat off and it'll change. But thank you.
Well, Jim, I don't even know where to begin. Let's do a little bit of a history lesson for people here, I guess, to begin on Astroturf. Astroturf was invented in 1965. Is that correct? And then went into the Astrodome in 1966, because a lot of people don't know that the Astros initially, the roof had sunlight that would come in, and they thought that they were going to have a natural surface originally in the Astrodome. Can you kind of take us through the issues that the Houston Astros were working through there with the 8th wonder of the world, and how Astroturf ended up being the solution to their problems?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The roof was translucent. They were going to grow grass. And then, of course, the fielders couldn't see the ball. So then they painted the roof panels, and then the grass died. And just on a parallel path, Astroturf had been was Monsanto Company, the big chemical company, was in the process of inventing a surface that could. The Ford Foundation found out that city kids weren't as healthy as country kids because they didn't have a place to run and fall. So they were going to make this surface that you could have, pave the asphalt parkways and actually have a place to play. So they go to each other. And the funny part about it is Judge Roy Hofheinz, who's the guy that built the dome, said to Monsanto, they said, well, you got this surface. Can we put it in here to play? He said, oh, that's great, because coincidentally, that's what I was going to charge you to call it Astroturf. So that's how it went. It was just kind of crazy thing that the parallel paths came together. Astroturf went in there. They did the infield in 65, and then in 66, subsequently, they did the outfield. And there it was.
Now, here's one for you, Jim. I was just checking as you were talking to me. I was doing a quick little search here to make sure that I'm not because I'm going off the cuff. This wasn't a question that I had planned for you. But for a number of years in the 70s at Comiskey Park, did the White Sox, did they have an Astroturf infield but a natural grass outfield?
Correct.
There. Does that
Yeah.
That's something that people don't ever really talk about, but I find that to be kind of fascinating. Why did the White Sox decide on having a partial Astroturf, partial natural grass field? Because I can't recall any other teams from that era doing something like that.
Well, because most of the play takes place on the infield, so they could avoid rainouts. We always say the outfield is 3 men on 3 acres. So I mean, even if it was bad out there, they could slop around. But so they tried it. They didn't have it very long. And people still do it a few times. High schools, they can get up north where they can get their play in, based on rain and lousy weather. And then the outfield, you just got to deal with what you deal with.
So a few other milestones here. 1970 was the first World Series that was played partially on Astroturf. Of course, the Cincinnati Reds home games, that is the year that Riverfront Stadium opened. In fact, so the first year of Riverfront Stadium, they made it to the World Series, and we saw the Fall Classic on Astroturf. And then a few years later, Super Bowl VIII in 1974, down at Rice Stadium in Houston, the Dolphins and the Vikings played the first ever Super Bowl that was played on Astroturf. Jim, tell me about how Astroturf took off in popularity after it was adopted by the Astros. And by the time that we were through the 1970s, I don't remember what number of stadiums had Astroturf at that point in Major League Baseball and in the NFL, but the number was quite high by then.
It really was. I mean, it was always sold as a uniform ball bounce. Baseball hates to have rainouts at the major league level. They're costly, rescheduling, all that stuff. So you could, at the old days in the original 70s, probably saw it at Cincy, was the Zamboni-like machine, which was actually made by Zamboni, which removed the water. And I mean, that was a big deal. They loved that. And teams liked the play. The problem was at places like Riverfront, Philadelphia Vet, and Pittsburgh, they had the baseball-football combo, where you had the base cutouts in the middle of the football field. And basically that area is cut out, and then you got to put a plug in there. And then when there's the transition between baseball and football, you can't do it well. I mean, so it really kind of sucked for both teams. But the original thought was avoid rainouts, uniform ball bounce, and, we actually sold it as safer, which ended up coming back to bite us in the butt. When you start saying something safer, someone's going to get hurt, guaranteed. And when they did, they would blame us. So, but at one point, we were probably close to 60% of the teams. I mean, it was awesome for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the Vet eventually was maligned for just what you were saying, where it was almost like a quilt. If you saw the aerial view, you could see here's a square of turf here, here's another patch over here, and playing multiple sports, which I guess in the beginning that was one of the perks of it, that was the thing of the time, right? As you said, Three Rivers in Pittsburgh, the Vet, Riverfront, the concrete donuts, as they call them, they were meant to be able to house baseball and football. And Astroturf, I'm sure, helped with that initially, but then you end up with some problems when you've got two different teams trying to use it for two different purposes.
Yes, and let's and don't forget Busch Stadium was, of course, a big one too. At the Vet, they actually had a exhibition game canceled because they couldn't get the turnover right between the baseball and the football. We took the hit. It wasn't, there was a crazy thing where at the Vet, the Phillies owned the dirt, and the Eagles owned the turf, and the city ran the stadium. So you had all these things coming together, and they were playing the Ravens at an exhibition game. And Billick, I think, was the coach, and he just said, "We ain't playing on this crap. We're not playing. We quit." And so, I mean, that turned out to be a major thing. I spent a lot of time in Philly trying to put that flyer out. We got through it, but man, no more Vet for me.
Well, Jim, obviously, there's an evolution in any product as you refine it and figure out how to make it better and new technologies emerge and whatever. I'm sure in your 47 years, you have seen drastic changes in the nature of artificial surfaces and AstroTurf. What are the key moments in the progression of this that have made it increasingly better, more affordable, and et cetera? Because what we see now with artificial surfaces is a far cry from what they look like when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that's probably in your living room was the old AstroTurf real carpet, like short pile, about a half inches tall, and then there was basically a wrestling mat underneath the thing, and it was tough. You could beat the living crap out of it, but it was also hard on the athletes. What's happened over the last 25 years is we grew the carpet to about 2 to 2.5 inches tall, put better pads underneath, more sophisticated pads that weren't so temperature would be flatter temperature response for shock absorbency, and then they fill it up. You see the rubber pellets. So there's either sand and ground up rubber tires that fill up that 2.5 inches. Or now there's all sorts of exotic stuff too. There's coconut husks, there's corn, there's wood, actually very finely ground up wood that's milled and everything. Doesn't be abrasive. I don't know how the hell they do it, but it does work. So you've got all these things which are actually better for the environment, way more player comfort involved, and good safety. Not too much traction, not as tough on the athletes, certainly as the AstroTurf was.